here. Another bolt right there. Another one you gotta remove is right there. That's it. Now this is where it gets difficult. Can't even see in there, bro. Alright, so let's just say for the sake of argument, you are at this level. You already looked at every single YouTube video. They all say the same thing. There's 5 skinny bolts up top, which are the size of 932. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Obviously the dashboard comes off. You got a hidden bolt right here, a 10mm bolt. You have the harness, you have to disconnect the 932 socket, and then you have another socket right there, and you have brackets that connect to here. You'll see that my heater core is already out, and here's the hack. There is no way I'm going to undo the hood. There is no way that I'm going to jack the car up, remove the tire, remove the wheel well, and get to the last bolt or two. So the hack, the repair hack, would allow you to gain access by dropping the HVAC box all the way down. Now what's the hack? The hack is you use your brute strength, and you're gonna get to about right here before you get some tension. Don't be afraid. From here, you can continue to pull it down and it's going to crack. Something's gonna break, and I'll tell you what exactly. Now before we get to that, you need to make sure that the top bolt is removed. There's also a bolt down here. I cannot get to it. Right there. Perfect. Bolt right there. You gotta get that bolt out. This one, nothing you can do about it. That's the one we are avoiding. In order to undo this bolt, you have to go through the wheel well and undo the fender, but it's stupid because it's at the very corner and it flexes. It's plastic, it's flexible, and if it cracks, whatever. This bolt, take it off, you could put it back. I don't remember what bolt that was, whatever. That's gonna be fun, putting it back together. Now let me show you what happens. You crank on it as hard as you can, and you're gonna hear a pop, you're gonna hear a snap, you're gonna hear a crack, and it's gonna flex, and you will gain access to that. What happened was you broke that tiny, insignificant plastic right off of the mount, and that mount is surrounded by 2 other bolts on each corner, so even if it's broken off, don't matter. Once it seals up, it's going to be held together by the other bolts that you removed. That's the bolt that is next to the heater core box on the very bottom, on the blower motor side of the firewall. You have to pretty much take 2 more hours disassembling and reassembling in order to get to that slip bolt, and it's funny because you can just break it right off and it goes back in place. Now the most important bolt would be the top bolt right here. Once that bolt is fastened in place, the one on the other side of the firewall would be fastened in place. The one on the bottom, I can get to it, fastened in place. Just saved yourself about 2 hours, or maybe 3 hours. There's no way I'm gonna waste that much time taking the wheel apart, taking the fender well liner, just to get to that stupid bolt. Like, who's gonna waste their time? And if you're a flat rate mechanic, there's no way you're gonna take the full 8 hours. you're gonna do this in less time. Granted, if someone brings their car to a dealership, I expect them not to break anything. That's where the catch-22 is. If you're a shade tree mechanic, explain this to your customer and you tell them that this is the fastest way. Show them this YouTube video, and that's what's gonna explain to them the easiest fix. It's a Sunday afternoon. I don't want to be here all day. I want to spend bare minimum amount of time fixing this, and I want to get back to doing my thing. I am not going to sacrifice 8 hours on a weekend to fix this, and I'm not going to spend money for someone else to do what I just did. So let me just set this thing up, and I'm going to put the brand new heater core back in. So now the box is fully assembled. 3 bolts outside by the firewall behind the engine are secured, and 1 bolt on the bottom is secured, and you can see it's sturdy. Even with that bolt bulkhead broken, or the bolt mount broken, it still does not have any wiggle to it. It's very secured, very sturdy. I don't see any feature failure with this, and I'm very certain that this will be fine for the life of the vehicle. If the heater core ends up being bad again in the next 5 years, I imagine, then I'll deal with it then. But granted, this car is a 2003 and we're now 2018, so I imagine that I have about that much time left before the heater core messes up again. Now, another reason why the heater core messed up is because the prior owner didn't do a coolant flush routinely. So within that, a lot of the corrosion had happened in the heater core, as well as the elbow for the thermostat housing. So that kind of gave me an idea that, okay, if this was corroded, something else in the engine will be corroded as well. And it just happened that the heater core ended up leaking shortly after I replaced the thermostat housing. But yeah, very confident, and I'm glad that I saved that much time. Unfortunately, I did disassemble the wheel well, but I'll just put the bolts back in and you know, let it be the end of that. It allowed me to continue to assemble, and then we'll move on to flushing and testing the heat. So one of the things you really got to do also is change your heater hoses. The old heater hoses, well, aside from this one not being secured, it got damaged when it was hitting the fan blade. You definitely want to change them, because inside these heater hoses, a lot of the corrosion is accumulated. You don't want to be changing the heater core out again shortly after you placed it. So I went ahead and put new heater hoses, make sure the inside is nice and fresh. I do need to change that lower the lower radiator hose. Can't really see it that well, and the upper radiator hose, as well as the radiator flush. Even requiring me to remove the radiator in the future and get it flushed at a shop. And then this is very dirty, so all I did is top it off, but it's pretty bad in there. It's pretty bad. So a lot of this upkeep has been a long time coming, and it wasn't until the heater core started leaking that I actually went ahead and addressed that issue. So brand new hoses is worth it. They're kind of expensive, but really you don't want to cut any corners, especially in your private vehicle. Now if you're doing this for someone else and they deny new hoses, that's fine. That's their call, but you at least want to give them that option. And they're really easy, since the connections are at the firewall. It doesn't take much to do to replace them, especially if you're doing a heater core. You're gonna have to disconnect them anyways, and it connects to the intake manifold right beside the thermostat housing, right there. And at the water pump there's a fitting. So very easy, straightforward. And that's the thermostat housing that I had to replace. Now it looks like it's moist, but that's just epoxy. I had to epoxy the old one to get it to limp home because it was leaking, so I replaced it and that's good to go.